The boardroom on the 30th floor of Lalung Industries was a dome of glass and steel, suspended above Seoul's glittering skyline. Inside, the air was chilled to exactly 68 degrees, sterile and sharp with the scent of old money and silent judgment. Choi Tae-sung sat near the head of the table, his spine rigid, his face a mask of porcelain indifference. He was the heir to this industrial empire, a man whose wealth could purchase nations. Yet he felt less like a king and more like livestock being appraised for breeding. At the power position sat Chairman Tae-sung, a man whose wrinkles were carved by ruthlessness rather than time. Around him perched the board members, nodding vultures waiting for a carcass. "The Han merger requires stability, Tae-sung," the chairman said, his voice like grinding stones. "Stability means marriage. Han Sora is prepared. The contract will be signed by quarter's end." Tae-sung's jaw tightened. Always the merger, the bloodline, the perfect dynasty. They saw a stud horse, a vehicle for the next generation. If only they knew the truth, that the machine they prized was broken. For 3 years, he'd lived in private hell, his body shut down under crushing expectations. He was impotent in the bedroom because he was powerless in his own destiny. "I will marry," Tae-sung said, his voice arctic and precise, cutting through the sterile air. "But I will not marry Han Sora." The chairman's eyes narrowed. "What did you say?" "I have already chosen a bride. She is waiting downstairs." He hadn't chosen her through tradition. He'd encountered Sabrina Gondar 4 days ago at a gallery in Itaewon, a space Lalung Industries planned to demolish. She had confronted him directly, bypassing security with audacity that fractured his detachment, demanding he witness the community his corporation was erasing. She was fierce, striking, and completely incompatible with his monochrome world. He had offered her a contract, save her gallery in exchange for a performance that would detonate his grandfather's expectations. When the boardroom doors opened, the silence felt violent. Sabrina walked in wearing deep burgundy, her natural hair styled like architectural sculpture. She moved with her head high, her eyes sweeping the room with dignity that made billionaires in their bespoke suits appear small. Tae-sung crossed to her side, placing his hand on her back. "Gentlemen, meet the future Mrs. Choi, Sabrina Gondor." The explosion was instantaneous. Shouting, gasps of rage, the chairman's fists slamming against mahogany. They called it disgrace. They called it corporate suicide. Tae-sung observed the chaos with detached, surgical satisfaction. He glanced at Sabrina. Her shoulders were squared, her hands steady at her sides, but she did not retreat. She was enduring this calculated humiliation for her art, for her community's survival. It was a transaction, just like every other relationship in his life. "Why are you doing this?" she had asked when he presented the contract in her cramped studio. "Spite," he had answered with brutal honesty. "I want to watch their perfect world burn." "And what happens when the flames die out?" she had countered, her artist's eyes seeing through his expensive armor. "We survive in the ashes," he had replied. The wedding ceremony, held 3 weeks later, was warfare disguised as celebration. It took place not in the grand Lalung family estate, but in a contemporary art space, a compromise that satisfied neither tradition nor rebellion completely. The media descended like locusts. "Billionaire's shocking choice," the headline screamed, their subtext dripping with prejudice and prurient curiosity. Tae-sung stood at the minimalist altar watching Sabrina move down the aisle between rows of his family's business associates. She wore white, but it was a modern architectural design, elegant, bold, unapologetic. The guests whispered behind champagne flutes and designer handbags. They examined her like she was an exotic specimen, a contamination in the Choi bloodline. Tae-sung felt an unexpected surge of protective fury. He had brought her into this den of wolves as ammunition,
but witnessing her grace under their thinly veiled contempt triggered something dormant in his chest, though his lower body remained as numb and unresponsive as frozen machinery. He took her hand. Her palm was warm, with the rough texture of someone who created rather than merely consumed. It was a real hand, a working hand that shaped beauty from raw materials. "Do you take this man?" the officiant asked, his voice echoing in the deliberately sparse space. Sabrina looked up at him. Her eyes were deep wells of brown flecked with amber light. There was uncertainty there, yes, but also a fierce determination that bordered on defiance. She squeezed his hand with surprising strength. "I do," she said, her voice carrying notes of warmth and rhythm that felt foreign in this cold city. "And you, Choi Tae-sung?" "I do," he said, sealing a contract he barely understood. As he kissed her, a chaste, camera-appropriate press of lips, he felt nothing but dry contact of skin against skin. His heart remained granite. His body remained a broken machine. He had won this battle against his grandfather's tyranny, but as he looked at the woman he had conscripted into his private war, he realized the true conflict had just begun. He was a husband now, but he was not a man. Tonight they would retreat to his penthouse fortress, and the reality of his dysfunction would be the final cruel punchline to this elaborate joke of a marriage. He prepared himself to be distant, to reject her before she could discover his inadequacy and reject him. He prepared for another night of endless winter. The penthouse occupied the entire 47th floor of the Millennium Seoul Tower. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city's glittering nervous system, vehicles below moving like blood cells through concrete arteries. It was stunning, expensive, and completely devoid of human warmth, a perfect reflection of the man who lived there. Tae-sung removed his tie, the silk whispering against his collar as he pulled it free. The wedding reception had been an endurance test of manufactured smiles and passive-aggressive congratulations. Now, in the cathedral silence of his glass fortress, the adrenaline of rebellion was evaporating, replaced by the familiar, crushing weight of his inadequacy. He poured himself whiskey from a crystal decanter that cost more than most people's cars, another expensive thing that failed to fill the emptiness. Through the reflection in the window, he could see Sabrina in the expansive living room behind him, still wearing her wedding dress, looking small and displaced among his minimalist furniture. She was examining the space with an artist's eye, likely cataloging how sterile and lifeless it felt. This was the moment he had been dreading, the wedding night, the expected consummation, the inevitable discovery that Seoul's most eligible bachelor was fundamentally broken. Tae-sung turned to her, his expression carefully neutral, preparing to deliver the speech he had rehearsed. The speech about separate bedrooms, about the contractual nature of their arrangement, about how she should expect nothing from him beyond the financial security he had promised. But when he opened his mouth to speak, Sabrina had already moved. She was walking toward the balcony doors, pushing them open to let in the cool night air. She stepped outside, still in her wedding dress, and without a word, she began to remove the formal jacket he had provided for the cool night evening. "What are you doing?" Tae-sung asked, following her outside despite himself. Sabrina didn't answer immediately. She had already retrieved something from her small bag, a sketchbook and charcoal pencils. She sat on the edge of the balcony's built-in bench, her wedding dress pooling around her like spilled paint, and began to draw the Seoul skyline with fierce, angry strokes. The broken machine prepared to deliver his cold rejection, unaware that the woman he had married as a weapon was about to become the only person who could make him feel human again.
Before we dive into Tae-sung and Sabrina's story, I need to tell you something that breaks my heart. YouTube suspended our original channel without warning. No strikes, no explanation. Years of stories gone. Thousands of you were there, and now we're starting from zero. If you're watching this and thinking, I'll subscribe later, please don't. Later never comes. We've learned that the hard way. This channel is our phoenix moment, rising from ashes we didn't deserve.
Every story I tell, every late night spent writing, every emotion I pour into these narratives, it all disappears if you don't hit that subscribe button. I'm not asking for charity. I'm asking you to be part of something we're rebuilding. Don't let this channel become another casualty. Subscribe now, because later might mean we're gone again before you remember. The conference room doors opened and silence descended like a guillotine blade. Taesung entered with Sabrina on his arm, her dark skin luminous against the white marble floors, her natural curls defying every rule of Seoul's polished elite. The board members, men who'd witnessed hostile takeovers and corporate coups without flinching, simply stared. Sabrina felt their eyes like knives. Was this what being dissected felt like? She'd known Taesung was wealthy, powerful even, but this was something else entirely. The massive Lalung Industries logo loomed behind the conference table like a judge's bench, and suddenly the man beside her felt less like a husband and more like a stranger who'd purchased her soul. Chairman Taesung's teacup froze halfway to his lips. For 3 seconds, an eternity in that room, he simply looked at his grandson with something that might have been respect if it weren't so clearly rage. Then his hand began to tremble, tea rippling in concentric circles of fury. "Grandfather," Taesung said smoothly, "I'd like to introduce my wife." The word wife detonated through the room. Someone's pen clattered to the floor. A woman in Chanel gasped audibly. Sabrina watched a board member's face cycle through confusion, shock, and then something uglier, disgust poorly masked as surprise. Do you think she noticed the racism immediately, or did it creep in slowly, like poison? Within an hour, Sabrina's face was everywhere. News helicopters circled the building. Her Instagram, dormant for months, exploded with comments in Korean she couldn't read, but whose tone she understood perfectly. The English ones were worse. Gold digger, diversity hire for the bedroom. How much did he pay her? That evening, alone in the back of Taesung's town car, Sabrina finally understood. She wasn't a bride, she was a bomb, and Taesung had just pulled the pin in front of everyone who mattered in his world. The leather seat felt cold against her skin as she watched Seoul's glittering skyline blur past. Somewhere in this city, his grandfather was plotting. Somewhere, the elite circles were closing ranks. And somewhere deep in her chest, a terrible question formed. Had she just sold herself to a man who saw her as nothing more than a weapon? What would you do if you realized you'd become someone's instrument of revenge? 3 years ago, Taesung had been different. Not happy. The Lalung heir was never permitted something as frivolous as happiness, but functional. Then came the night that shattered him. Her name was irrelevant now, some actress his grandfather had arranged for companionship. The penthouse suite at the Shilla Hotel, the champagne neither of them wanted, the expectation that hung in the air like a noose. She'd been beautiful and bored, doing her duty to charm the crown prince, and his body had simply refused. Not nervousness, not hesitation, complete shutdown, as if his own flesh had decided to rebel against the puppeteer's strings. The actress had been kind about it, professional even. That somehow made it worse. The doctor visits that followed were humiliating exercises in futility. Specialists assured him there was nothing physically wrong. Psychological, they said, as if that made it better. As if knowing your mind was your prison made the cage any larger. Medications did nothing. Therapy felt like explaining color to someone who'd been blind since birth. How could he articulate the suffocation of being treated like a breeding stallion, a corporate asset with a pulse? The night before his wedding to Sabrina, Taesung stood in his bathroom staring at his reflection in the chrome and glass. 3 years of impotence taught him exactly what he was, a broken machine pretending to be human. His grandfather wanted him to produce heirs, secure mergers, perform dynasty like it was a script. But the machine had malfunctioned, and no amount of maintenance could fix it. Was he wrong to use Sabrina knowing he was fundamentally broken? He thought of her then, the vibrant artist who'd signed his contract without understanding she was signing her dignity away. Part of him, a small, dying part, felt guilt, but the larger part, the part that had calcified under 3 years of dysfunction and shame, felt only cold determination. If he couldn't be the heir they wanted, he'd be the weapon they feared. His reflection stared back, hollow-eyed. Tomorrow, he would marry a woman as a declaration of war, and if that made him cruel, well, hadn't cruelty been the family business all along? Tomorrow, everything would burn, and maybe, in the ashes, he'd finally feel something other than this crushing numbness.
The Sheila Hotel's grand ballroom had hosted presidents and royalty, but never had it seen a wedding quite like this. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow prisms across 500 guests who sat in their Tom Ford and Chanel like a jury assembled for judgment. This wasn't a celebration. This was a public execution disguised as a ceremony. Sabrina stood in the bride's room, staring at herself in the floor-length mirror. The dress was exquisite, French lace and silk that probably cost more than her childhood home, but she felt like a lamb dressed for slaughter. Through the closed doors, she could hear the string quartet playing something that sounded like a funeral march in major key. When the doors opened and the wedding march began, every head turned. Not with joy, with calculation. Sabrina walked down that aisle and felt their eyes cataloging every detail. Her natural hair styled in elegant coils, her skin that refused to apologize for its darkness, her American confidence that didn't bow to their silent contempt. An elderly woman in the third row whispered something to her companion, both looking at Sabrina like she was a stain on expensive fabric. Do you think she wanted to run, or was her pride too strong to give them the satisfaction? Tae-sung waited at the altar in a black tuxedo that made him look like a beautiful weapon. When their eyes met, Sabrina searched for something. Regret, warmth, recognition of the sacrifice she was making. She found nothing. His face was a mask of aristocratic indifference, and in that moment, she hated him with a clarity that took her breath away. The officiant spoke words about love and commitment that tasted like ash in the air. When Tae-sung lifted her veil, his touch was clinical. When he placed the ring on her finger, his hands were steady while hers trembled. The kiss was brief, cold, a contractual obligation fulfilled. But Sabrina saw what others missed. Chairman Tae-sung in the front row, his weathered hands gripping the pew so hard his knuckles went white, saw the way he aged 10 years in the space of that kiss, saw his carefully constructed dynasty crack like fine porcelain under pressure. The flash of cameras was blinding. Tomorrow, her face would be on every news site in Seoul, probably the world. The black American nobody who'd somehow trapped the Laloon heir. They'd make her the villain in this story. She knew that now. As they walked back down the aisle, man and wife in name only, Tae-sung leaned close enough to whisper, "Smile. We're giving them exactly what they deserve." But what about what she deserved? That question lodged in her throat like a stone as rice and flower petals rained down on her head, each one feeling like a small violence. If you were Sabrina, could you have smiled? The penthouse occupied the entire top floor of the Lalung Tower, and Sabrina hated it on sight. Everything was white, gray, or chrome, a monument to minimalism that felt less like design and more like emotional sterility. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of Seoul, but they only emphasized how high up she was, how far from anything real. Her single suitcase looked pathetic in the master bedroom, a splash of worn leather against marble floors. Inside, her paints, brushes, 3 changes of clothes, and the sketchbook where she'd drawn her dreams. Everything she owned in the world fit in one bag. Everything Tae-sung owned required an entire building. The housekeeper, a severe woman named Mrs. Kang, gave Sabrina instructions in heavily accented English, each word dripping with barely concealed disdain. Breakfast at 7, dinner at 8. The young master preferred silence in the evenings. Do not touch the items in his study.
Do not rearrange the furniture. Do not, essentially, exist in any way that might disturb the pristine emptiness of this glass prison. Does he have any preferences for my room? Sabrina asked, her voice steady despite the rage building in her chest. Mrs. Kang's eyebrow lifted a fraction. Your room, Mrs. Choi, is wherever the young master permits you to be. That night, Tae-sung returned from the office near midnight. He barely glanced at Sabrina curled on the leather sofa, looking small in an apartment designed to make humans feel insignificant. He loosened his tie, poured himself whiskey, and stood by the window like a king surveying conquered territory. I trust Mrs. Kang explained the household rules, he said, not looking at her. She explained that I'm a guest in my own marriage. You're not a guest. He paused, and for a moment something flickered across his face. Guilt? Regret? Then it vanished. You're an employee. This is a 1-year contract, remember? Play your part, and you'll be compensated generously. Was he protecting himself, or had he genuinely become this cold? Sabrina stood, and despite being barefoot and 5'6" to his 6'2", she felt taller in that moment. I signed a contract for marriage, not servitude, and I'm not your employee. I'm the woman you humiliated in front of 500 people to spite your grandfather. The words hung between them like a challenge. Tae-sung's jaw tightened, whiskey glass frozen halfway to his lips. For 3 heartbeats, she thought he might actually respond like a human being. Instead, he downed the whiskey in one swallow and walked to his bedroom, closing the door with a quiet click that sounded like a cell locking. Sabrina stood alone in the enormous living room, surrounded by luxury that felt like ice against her skin, and understood with perfect clarity she traded her freedom for money. The golden cage had closed, and her jailer looked at her with all the warmth of a man appraising furniture. How long would you last in that kind of cold? Tae-sung stood in his bedroom, listening to the silence beyond the door. This was how the year would proceed: cold professionalism, contractual distance, mutual indifference. He'd expected Sabrina to retreat to the guest room, to accept her role in this charade with quiet resignation. Instead, he heard something that didn't belong in his carefully controlled world: music. He found her on the balcony, and the sight stopped him cold. She'd changed into the wedding dress again, that beautiful, expensive symbol of their false union, and was systematically destroying it with paint. Violent strokes of crimson and gold across the white lace, transforming it from bridal elegance into something raw and angry. Her canvas was the soul skyline, her brushstrokes furious, and she was crying. Not delicate tears, gut-wrenching sobs that shook her entire body as she painted with a ferocity that looked like exorcism. "What are you doing?" His voice came out harsher than intended. Sabrina whirled on him, paintbrush clutched like a weapon, mascara streaked down her cheeks. "What am I doing? I'm making art out of this disaster. I'm taking this costume you put me in and making it mean something, because if I don't create something real right now, I'm going to shatter." "You're ruining a dress that cost—" "I don't care what it cost," her voice cracked. "You think I don't know what this is? You married me to humiliate them, but you're humiliating me. You paraded me in front of those people like I was a circus animal, let them tear me apart with their eyes, their whispers. I saw the news, Tae-sung. I know what they're calling me. Gold digger, opportunist, worse things I won't repeat." The paint-stained wedding dress clung to her curves, and her natural hair had come loose from its elegant styling, wild around her face. She looked nothing like the composed artist he'd approached with his cold contract. She looked alive in a way that made his pristine penthouse feel like a mausoleum. "You knew what you were signing up for," he said, but the words felt hollow even to him. "Did I? Did I know you'd treat me like I'm not even human? That you'd marry me and then look through me like I'm glass?" She stepped closer, paint-stained hands trembling. "Look at me, Tae-sung. Actually look at me. I'm not a weapon. I'm not a chess piece. I'm a woman who made a desperate choice and is now trapped with a man who sees her as a business transaction." Her eyes were blazing, her chest heaving with emotion, and something happened that Tae-sung thought was impossible. His body, dormant for 3 years, responded. Not subtly, not tentatively, with a hunger that shocked him, that made his breath catch and his heart hammer against his ribs. For 3 years, he'd been convinced he was broken, damaged beyond repair. But standing before this woman who refused to be diminished, who demanded to be seen, his body proved him devastatingly wrong. She must have seen something change in his expression because she froze, brush falling from her fingers to clatter on the balcony floor. "What?" she whispered. He closed the distance between them in 2 strides, one hand catching her waist, the other cupping her face with a gentleness that contradicted 3 years of numbness. Paint smeared on his white shirt, her tears wet against his palm, and he was trembling. "You," he breathed, and his voice cracked. "You're real." When he kissed her, it wasn't cold or contractual. It was desperate, hungry, 3 years of starvation finding sustenance. Sabrina made a sound against his mouth, surprise, confusion, something else. And when he pulled back to look at her, his eyes were wet. "I was broken. For 3 years, I thought I'd never." He couldn't finish, couldn't articulate the miracle and terror of feeling desire, of wanting someone so badly it hurt. What was she supposed to do with this broken man who'd just come alive in her arms? Sabrina searched his face, seeing past the cold air to something wounded underneath. Her hand, still stained with paint, touched his cheek. "You're not broken. You're human, and humans need connection, not contracts." That night, in the space between spite and something dangerous, the machine discovered its heartbeat, and Sabrina realized the weapon her husband had crafted was cutting both of them.
Can I be honest with you? Right now, thousands of people are watching this story, feeling everything Sabrina feels. The betrayal, the hope, the transformation. But only a fraction will subscribe, and I don't understand it. We lost everything when YouTube took our channel. We're pouring our hearts into rebuilding, giving you stories that make you feel, think, and connect. Yet some of you will watch until the end, feel moved, maybe even cry, and then just leave without subscribing. That's the part that haunts me at 3 a.m. when I'm writing these stories. If this story touched you, if you're invested in how it ends, if you believe storytelling matters, prove it. Hit subscribe. Don't be the person who takes without giving back. We're counting on you. Morning light spilled across the penthouse like an accusation. Sabrina woke tangled in expensive sheets, her body aching in ways that felt both foreign and inevitable. Beside her, Tae-sung was already awake, propped on one elbow, watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. This was different. Last night had cracked something open between them, and now the morning after felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, uncertain whether to step back or jump. His hand traced her shoulder, down her arm, fingers intertwining with hers. The touch was possessive but tender, confused but hungry. "I don't understand what you did to me," he said quietly. "I didn't do anything. I just refused to be your puppet." He laughed, but it sounded pained. "That's exactly what you did. You made me feel something I thought was dead." His thumb brushed across her knuckles. 3 years, Sabrina. 3 years of doctors telling me nothing was physically wrong, that it was all in my head. And you, in one night, She sat up. She'd clutched to her chest, suddenly aware of how vulnerable this moment was. Don't confuse physical response with emotional connection, Tae-sung. Last night doesn't erase why you married me. It doesn't make the humiliation hurt less. But even as she said it, she felt the lie. Because last night hadn't felt like revenge or spite. It had felt like 2 people drowning, finding air in each other's lungs. Over the following days, everything shifted. Tae-sung became protective in ways that confused her.
His hand on her lower back as they entered restaurants, the way he dismissed board meetings to have lunch with her, how he'd find her painting in the penthouse and just sit, watching, asking questions about her process that nobody had ever cared to ask before. Do you think she was falling for him or just falling for the attention? Mrs. King noticed the change and her disapproval deepened. The housekeeper's silent judgment followed Sabrina through the apartment like a shadow. "You're still not one of us," her eyes said. "You're still the outsider who trapped our prince." One evening, Sabrina found Tae-sung in his study, the contract spread across his desk. Their contract, the document that outlined her year of service, her compensation, the terms of their arrangement. He was staring at it like it was written in poison. "What's wrong?" she asked from the doorway. He looked up, and the expression on his face was tortured. This is wrong. Every word of it." He ran his hair through his hair, frustrated. "I wrote this contract to protect my revenge. Now it feels like a prison." "It is a prison for both of us." He stood, crossed to her, cupped her face with both hands. "I don't want a contract with you anymore. I don't even know what I want, but it's not this cold agreement. It's not counting down days until you leave." Sabrina's heart hammered against her ribs. This was dangerous territory. She'd gone from being his weapon to being something he needed, and need could be just as manipulative as spite. "Tae-sung, we can't just pretend." He kissed her, cutting off the words, and she tasted desperation on his lips. When he pulled back, his eyes were dark with something that looked terrifyingly like love. "I'm falling, and I don't know how to stop." She should have stepped back, should have protected herself from a man who'd proven he could be cruel. But instead, she heard herself say, "Then don't stop, fall." And just like that, spite transformed into something far more dangerous, the possibility of real love built on a foundation of lies. How long can something real survive when it's built on deception? Chairman Tae-sung did not rise to power by accepting defeat. When his grandson's marriage became a global scandal, when Sabrina's face graced every tabloid from Seoul to New York, he didn't rage, he strategized. The first attack was subtle, a private investigator's report delivered in a leather portfolio. Sabrina's father, absent since she was 6, her mother's struggle with addiction, the studio apartment in Queens she'd fled from, desperate enough to sign a stranger's contract. Financial desperation, the report concluded, classic gold digger profile. The chairman leaked it to the press with surgical precision. Within hours, the narrative shifted. The sympathetic story of an artist swept into romance became a calculated social climber's scheme. Her Instagram comments, already vicious, turned radioactive. Sabrina discovered it during breakfast, scrolling through her phone while Tae-sung read financial reports. Her coffee went cold as she read headline after headline, each one gutting her. Lalung heir's wife, opportunist or artist? From Queens to Korean royalty, the calculated rise of Sabrina Gondor. Sources say Choi marriage was financially motivated. "They're destroying me," she whispered. Tae-sung looked up, saw her face, and within 30 seconds was on the phone with his lawyers. But the damage was done. The internet was forever, and Sabrina Gondor had been convicted in the court of public opinion. The second attack was more direct. A woman arrived at the penthouse, elegant, mid-50s, carrying herself like royalty. She introduced herself as Mrs. Han, mother of the woman Tae-sung was supposed to marry. $20 million, she said, sliding a check across the marble coffee table. "Leave quietly. Disappear. My daughter will marry Tae-sung as arranged, and you'll be compensated for your inconvenience." Sabrina stared at the check. More money than she'd see in 10 lifetimes. Financial security. Freedom from this golden cage and the man who trapped her in it. Would you take the money and run, or stay and fight? "No," Sabrina said simply. Mrs. Han's composure cracked. You don't understand the forces you're dealing with. The Lalung family will destroy you. They've destroyed better people than you for less. Then let them destroy me standing up. Sabrina pushed the check back. I'm not for sale. Not anymore. The third attack was personal. Sabrina's art studio, the small space Taesung had rented for her to paint, was vandalized. Her canvases slashed, paint thrown across walls, years of work destroyed in one night. The message was clear. You don't belong here. Go home. When Sabrina saw the destruction, she didn't cry. She stood in the ruins of her sanctuary and felt something harden inside her. These people thought she was weak because she was an outsider, because her skin marked her as different, because she'd been desperate enough to accept a stranger's contract. They thought she could buy her or break her. They were wrong. She requested a meeting with Chairman Taesung, bypassing Taesung entirely. The old man received her in his office like an emperor granting audience to a peasant. He expected begging or tears. He got neither. You want me gone, Sabrina said, standing across from his massive desk, but I'm not leaving. Not because of money or threats or vandalism. I'm not leaving because your grandson, the man you tried to turn into a machine, finally feels something real, and that terrifies you more than any scandal. The chairman's eyes narrowed. You're a complication, a disruption to a legacy built over 60 years. No, I'm a mirror, and you hate what you see reflected back, that your grandson chose authenticity over obedience, that he'd rather burn your empire than live in your cage. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. Do your worst, Chairman. I grew up with nothing. I survived poverty, abandonment, and desperation. Your dynasty? That's just a different kind of cage, and I learned a long time ago how to slip through bars. After she left, Chairman Taesung sat in his office for a long time, staring at the door. For the first time in 60 years, he'd met someone who didn't blink first. And that someone was a Black American artist with paint under her fingernails and steel in her spine. What do you think frightened him more? That she wouldn't leave, or that she might actually be worthy of his grandson?
Sabrina found the document by accident. She wasn't snooping. She was looking for a charger in Taesung's study when the drawer stuck, and behind it, wedged in the back, was a folder marked Project Sabrina. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside, photos of her from before they met, surveillance documenting her routines, financial analysis of her desperation, a checklist of criteria, cold and clinical. And at the top, in Taesung's handwriting, selection requirements: must create maximum scandal, must be expendable. Expendable. The word detonated in her chest. Every tender moment, every touch, every whispered confession, all of it built on a foundation of calculated cruelty. He'd researched her like a target, selected her like ammunition, and deployed her as a weapon against his family. The love she'd started to feel was fertilized by lies. When Taesung came home that evening, whistling, carrying flowers like some romantic comedy protagonist, he found Sabrina standing in the living room with her suitcase packed and the folder spread across the coffee table. His face went white. Sabrina. Expendable, she said, voice shaking. That's what I was to you. Not a wife, not even a person, just useful collateral damage in your family war. That was before. Before what? Before you decided I was convenient to keep around? Before your broken body decided I was worth responding to? She was shouting now, 3 weeks of confusion and growing affection curdling into rage. You humiliated me, Taesung. You took a desperate woman and you weaponized her ethnicity, her poverty, everything that made her vulnerable. You made me fall in love with you knowing it started as a lie. The confession hung in the air, that she'd fallen in love, and it made everything worse because now he knew exactly how deep the betrayal cut. Did she mean to admit her feelings, or did the pain make her honest?
Tai-sung moved toward her and she stepped back, hand raised. Don't touch me, don't explain. Every word out of your mouth has been manipulation from the start. That's not true. The contract was manipulation. The marriage was spite. But everything after that first night, Sabrina, I swear. You swear? She laughed bitterly. On what? Your honor? You surveilled me like a criminal. You documented my weakness and exploited it. You looked at a desperate artist and thought, perfect weapon, and I was stupid enough to believe, her voice cracked. I was stupid enough to believe you saw me. I do see you. I see you more clearly than I've ever seen anything in my life. He was begging now, the crown prince of Lelung Industries on his knees on cold marble. I used you. I was cruel, but you saved me, Sabrina. You saved me from becoming the monster they wanted me to be. She grabbed her suitcase, tears streaming down her face. I didn't save you to be your redemption arc. I'm not a plot device in your journey to finding your humanity. I'm a woman whose heart you broke before she even knew she'd given it to you. Where will you go? Anywhere that's not here. Anywhere I'm not expendable. But she didn't leave immediately. She stood at the door, hand on the handle, and the question escaped before she could stop it. Did any of it matter? The nights on the balcony, the morning you told me I made you feel human, the way you looked at me like I hung the moon, was any of it real? Tai-sung was still on his knees, tears cutting tracks down his perfect face. All of it, every second after that first night, I fell in love with my own weapon, and I don't know how to undo the damage I caused. You can't. Some things, once broken, don't come back together the same. She walked out into the hallway, and the sound of the door closing behind her was like a coffin sealing. Inside, Tai-sung remained on his knees in the ruins of what might have been love, learning too late that the cruelest prisons are the ones we build ourselves. If you were Sabrina, would you have looked back?
Sabrina didn't go far. She made it to the building's lobby before her legs gave out, and she sat on a marble bench, suitcase at her feet, crying in front of strangers who pretended not to notice. Where was she supposed to go? Back to New York? To the studio apartment she'd fled from? To what? Her old life of desperation and fading dreams? The truth was, Seoul had become home. Not the penthouse or the luxury, but the city itself. The night markets, the Han River at sunset, the small gallery where she'd started showing her work. She'd built something here, however fragile. Tae-sung had given her that, even if his motives were poisoned. She found herself walking, suitcase wheeling behind her, until she stood outside the building, staring up at the penthouse terrace, the balcony where everything had changed, where she'd painted in her wedding dress and he'd looked at her like she was salvation. What was she supposed to do with a love built on lies, but sustained by truth? Upstairs, Tae-sung sat on that same balcony, head in his hands. The contract was spread before him, the document he'd authored in cold blood, now a testament to his cruelty. He'd wanted to hurt his grandfather. Instead, he'd destroyed the only person who'd ever made him feel whole. His phone buzzed. A message from the chairman. Board meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. Time to discuss your future with the company now that your stunt has run its course. They expected him to return to the fold, to sacrifice Sabrina, accept a real marriage to Han Sora, and resume his role as the obedient heir. They expected the rebellion to be temporary, the love to be performative. They were about to be very disappointed. Sabrina's voice came from behind him. You're supposed to be wallowing in self-pity, not plotting on the balcony where we first kissed. He spun around, and she stood there, suitcase still in hand, eyes red from crying, but her spine straight and her chin lifted. You came back. I came back to tell you something, she said, stepping onto the balcony. Seoul sprawled beneath them, lights twinkling like earthbound stars. I'm not your redemption. I'm not your weapon. If we do this, if we try to make something real out of this disaster, it's not to save you or spite your grandfather. It's because we choose each other, freely, knowing exactly what we're walking into. I don't deserve. I'm not interested in what you deserve. I'm interested in what we could become. She set down her suitcase.
But I need you to prove it, not with words or grand gestures. Prove you choose me over everything they want you to be. The next morning, Taesung walked into the boardroom with Sabrina at his side. The room went silent, board members exchanging glances that ranged from shock to satisfaction. They thought he'd brought her to apologize, to announce the marriage's dissolution. Instead, Taesung placed the contract on the table, their contract, and produced a lighter. "What are you doing?" the chairman demanded. "Choosing," Taesung said simply. He flicked the lighter, flame dancing. "This contract was written by a broken man who thought control was freedom. I'm not that man anymore." He touched flame to paper, and it caught, curling and blackening. "I resign as heir to Lelung Industries, effective immediately." The room erupted. The chairman stood so fast his chair toppled. "You'll forfeit everything, your shares, your position, your inheritance." "I know." Taesung watched the contract burn in the crystal ashtray, Sabrina's hand finding his. "I choose to walk away from an empire that requires I sacrifice my humanity. I choose to build something new with the woman I love, not because a contract binds us, but because we bind ourselves." Was he brave or foolish? Sometimes aren't they the same thing? Sabrina squeezed his hand, and together they walked out of the boardroom, leaving the burning contract and the dynasty's expectations in ashes behind them. 3 months later, they stood on that same balcony, this time at sunset. Sabrina's gallery show had been a success. Her paintings of soul, of transformation, of a woman finding her power in a foreign land. Taesung had started consulting for small businesses, using his expertise outside his family's shadow. They were rebuilding, together. "Do you regret it?" Sabrina asked, watching the sun paint the sky in golds and pinks. He pulled her close, and his smile was real, not the cold mask he'd worn for years. "I walked away from a prison. I walked toward freedom. We're not a fairy tale, you know. We're messy and complicated and built on a foundation that started rotten. But we burned it down," he said, kissing her temple. "We burned down the contract, the spite, the lies. And from those ashes, we rose," she finished, "like a phoenix." "We are the phoenix," he whispered. And in that moment, with soul sprawled beneath them and the future uncertain but theirs to write, 2 people who'd been weapons chose to become partners instead. The balcony where they'd first come alive became their sacred space, where paint-stained wedding dresses and broken machines transformed into art and authenticity, where a marriage of spite became a love of choice. And if sometimes the ashes still felt warm beneath their feet, reminding them of everything they'd burned to get here, well, that was just proof they'd survived the fire. Some victories aren't won through domination. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose love over legacy, connection over control, and build something real from the ruins of what never meant to be. They chose the fire, and in choosing it together, they proved that even the cruelest beginnings can become the most beautiful transformations. What would you burn down for a chance at something real?
You just spent time with Taesung and Sabrina's journey from spite to love. You felt something, didn't you? Here's what happens next. Most of you will click away, moved but not committed. Our old channel had hundreds of thousands who did that, loved the stories but never subscribed. Then YouTube deleted everything, and those viewers, gone. We can't find them. If you enjoyed this story and you're not subscribed, you're part of the problem. Harsh? Maybe. True? Absolutely. We're literally rebuilding from ashes, giving you premium storytelling for free. And the bare minimum you can do is click a button. If you can't do that, if our work isn't worth 1 second of your time, then I don't know what we're doing here. Subscribe, please. Don't let us disappear again.